I want to say something more to the point of I don't really think that making the game complicated is conducive for the money. And here's my particular beliefs and thoughts. Um, Ultimately, I think making the game complicated is a byproduct of busy work, and the illusion of learning something. And on top of it, it makes it sticky. It makes the game sticky. So like you invest a lot of time in learning something, you're going to be a lot less likely to drop it. Is what I was kind of looking for, and to me, I think that a lot of these games do it. There's definitely like board meetings that kind of play on the psychology of people and what they do. But I think the main reason for making a game kind of like complicated is you have a lot of systems that you need. It takes some time to actually learn them, and on top of the time, it it gives you a sense of investment. Um, and the illusion that the game is more complicated than what it is. We have these games nowadays where it's just it's so annoying because I think that I think that's precisely the reason why people are less likely to change their game and go try another game. They don't want to learn anything else. You know, it's too difficult to learn anything new. You know, and the amount of games that they have nowadays, it's like, damn, I don't fucking want to learn this shit. To be honest with you, I'm not I'm not trying to do all this. 99. What you gotta say about this?
I'm gonna keep it real. Making a game artificially difficult or making a game like very hard mode as the normal gameplay, it's a way to stat pad the length of a game and to hide gameplay deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest about it. When a game has bad gameplay or is using the same gameplay that's been using for a decade, but the game is hard, it's easier to hide the fact that you're using an old, lackluster gameplay engine, or your game just may not be long enough to warrant the price.
Yep. So you have these basically these layers of systems. You know what I mean? To continuously just it's like you have to peel the onion back more and more and more and more, and it slows you down from getting to the gameplay. It also, like I said before, it's fake. Um, it's like a fake sense of an accomplishment to have a game that's like complicated and you learn it. You know, I don't ever think that that's the wave of going ever. You should never do that. I don't think it's good for the industry when you look at it as a whole. I do not think that type of mentality is good for the industry. Period. It stagnates the industry. Because what they'll do is they'll take layers of games that already exist. I mean, they'll take a game that already exists and they'll add unnecessary layers to it. When they made that move from Grand Theft Auto PS2 versions to the PS3 and the basically the PS3, they weren't expecting Grand Theft Auto to do that big at all in terms of the multiplayer elements. What they were trying to do originally is do something different from what they did before. They've already had 3 games with the same type of mechanics, and so they wanted to go into the direction of realism. And so what comes with realism is, maybe you get drunk and you fall over or whatever the case is, and the cars react realistically and things of that nature. And honestly, when I play GTA 4, I don't think that game has been play tested at all, like in a way that makes it fun. There's just frame rate it was a bitch. It was never fun to drive into. It is unnecessary things that will stop you. Like, I'm like, why do I gotta pay a toll? Like, well, it's like, for what reason do I gotta do all this shit? It was really weird. Um, and eventually, when they released it to be online, all of those things so happen to kind of be conducive to online stuff. You pay a toll, you gotta buy your car and all this other shit. It's I don't know. I think like the whole practice in general is kind of like scummy as it is. I really don't like the fact that that games are what they are because they're trying to pad the difficulty and pad the length of the game. Because a lot of these games, like for instance, you can't do a lot of the stuff. I'm going to say Grand Theft Auto. I'm going to say God of War, right? I thoroughly enjoyed that game, right? But what they require you to do, and it may not be necessary. And I'll even go to Horizon too, since everyone will call me a fanboy for mentioning this, right? You know, I want to keep this kind of like a buck and 100. You have these abilities, right? In God of War, you have your axe, and the axe is heavy hitter, is slower than your Blades of Chaos, right? And then they add another type of weapon for more rangy type melee. And you switch in between, like you got cooldowns, and then now I got to worry about this armor that allows me to do this move more often or free. Like, you know, it allows me to break, you know, connect this combo where it normally wouldn't, but I have to go around and I have to find objects and shit like that and find little pieces to upgrade my shit. And I can't, like the developer is like, I can't let them get these materials that quickly because you're going to progress to the story and you're going to fuck up the pacing of the game. So you can't go any further. And it's just like, to me, it's not done in an organic way. You know what I mean? I'm running around searching for certain things, and I have to stop because the side quests prevents me from going any further. Now I'm into this area where there's a purple enemy, and I can't get past them because they literally let's make him almost invincible. It'll take forever in a day to break him down, and then it's like, for what? just to clear the new area. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's not that you can't do it, because you can. Just like the Souls games, you can do a lot of the different things. Do you want to do is the question. You know what I mean? And is it artificial or not? You know, it's like it doesn't really reward you on skill. It rewards you on like kind of like just spending a lot of time within an environment. And that's what I believe is a huge problem with these games nowadays, and it prevents you from trying other things out. That's what I was saying earlier. Now you spent all this time invested in this particular game, and you don't want to do that again. I do not want to do that all over again and learn this mechanic. Let's just say I went from God of War to Horizon. Now I got to learn Horizon shit. And I can't get past, well, I can get past it, but I can't get past it the way I want to. It takes forever to kill this robot dinosaur because I don't have the materials and I don't have the weapons. And now I got to search for this area. I mean, I got to search around this area, you know, without dying because this area is going to prevent me or make it very hard for me to get past this area before I can get this armor or weapon. Then I finally get it, and rinse and repeat. The more west you travel on the map. So now it's like it's just a whole artificial clusterfuck essentially to you know, instead of the game teaching you the mechanics, it's teaching you now you got to find something to make it easier for you to progress instead of learning by skill. Same thing with Souls games. You know what I'm saying? Like if yeah, you can learn online and find something. You know what I'm saying? Like you can go online and find out how to beat a boss or whatever the case is, but they make it so convoluted that that's where a lot of people go. They go online to see what's going on, and like let's be real, you know, that's where they do. They go online to find out what's going on because it's not an organic experience. I would say like all these games nowadays are doing the same thing where they want you to be in the game world, you know what I mean, to prevent competition, essentially. And this is, to me, that's kind of like a shitty way of doing things. I'm sorry for ranting on and on and on. Anybody that wants to like jump in on this particular conversation that's in there, I don't know. DJ, you can jump in if you want.
Yeah, I got you. Like I said, the games, and I think also why games have gotten more complicated is because we grew up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I like to have challenge in the games.
Hold on, DJ. So you should know me too. Instead of you just saying, bro, stop playing games, just stop Why don't you articulate that? I mean, I would assume that you're an adult and you should know exactly what you want to say. Like, how do I interpret that? How do I interpret that conversation, or how do I interpret your comment, bro? Stop playing games. Just stop. What does that mean exactly? How about I give you? How about I give you? If you're still in here, I'll give you the floor, and you can explain to me why I should stop playing games for some arbitrary reason. Yeah, there you go. You want to jump in there? You can explain what you mean by that, because I certainly don't know what the hell that is. Go on, DJ.
I think he probably taking it like you saying that the game should be easier. That's not what he's saying at all. You should know, like that's not what he's saying, and that ain't what I'm saying at all either. We're just saying that it shouldn't. It should be some games like we were saying GTA, for example. GTA it was not as complicated as as far as getting into it, figuring out how to set everything up, doing all these different roles and missions. Where I mean, yeah, that's cool, but it shouldn't be walled and gated off through menus and screens. I should be able to jump into the missions, and it should be kind of like like the story mode. But obviously they got to separate it to where people can add. It can add in. It kind of slows the game down, and then you got to figure out. Okay, I got to get this cargo to do this mission, and I got to get this or this card that I don't know how to get. They'll tell me how to get it or which card to get, but I got to go on a website or I got to go to a certain part of town, and if they don't tell me in game, I got to look up online where to find it in game. And then sometimes they'll tell you you got to look online to find out where to look on the in-game internet to find certain stuff. So it just it's tedium as well as for the average person to pick up and play and get in to feel like they're doing something and having fun. Every game does not have to be 3 or 4 levels deep before you get into it. It's not like. And that's why I like Dark Souls, because Dark Souls lets you know this game is hard, it's unforgiving, and it's not for the weak. But certain games, like we just put Rainbow Six in there, right?
Hold on, somebody's in here.
He's coming up. All right, let him come up. I want to hear him.
No, well, somebody was talking. I couldn't. I don't know. Yeah, I think that you're misconstrued what I'm saying. I've been gaming for a very long time, and a lot of the games back in the day, like the Super NES, they were much harder than these games nowadays. But it was much harder on the scale of that was your skill. That was you. You had to be cognizant of every projectile and in relation to your own character.
Facts.
And if you and it was easy to pick up and it was easy to pick up and play because you only had like a fucking run, shoot, and jump button. But it was still much, much harder than any Souls game, much, much harder than any Returnal game, much, much harder than a lot of different games. But now, instead of it being you and your skills, it's a lot of the stuff is gated off to unfair practices with the AI just to stop you from progressing. You know what I mean? So like your character is a level 1, right? When you first start a game, and he can only do 2 damage, per bullet, just to make it an arbitrary game. And then you get to this certain level where you get out of the haven area, right? And you meet an enemy, right? Where he has 2,000 points of health, and all of his hits per damage is like 50%. Sure, you can dodge it, but like, again, you have play testers that will be like, is this actually fucking fun? Like, if I did manage to do this, am I wasting my fucking time? That would encourage you, okay, I know I can't beat this person, or at least beat them in a way that I just want to be, I want to have fun. So let's be real here. If they took an emulator, right, and you take Street Fighter 2 and you run that emulator, that game is designed to see all of your inputs. They design it to fail so you can feel good about yourself. But when you run it through an emulator, a lot of that shit, it makes the computer think a lot quicker. So like when you try to play Street Fighter on an emulator, it's a lot harder than what you remember it. Because now the CPUs and all of the coding, it runs much faster, and you can't get away with a lot of the shit. They had this issue in Mortal Kombat 2 and 3 back in the day. They had that shit. No, and I do know that they still make those games. That's the thing. I'm not really referring to those games. You know, if the shoe fits for those games, fine. But I'm not referring to those games. Yes, they still make it. Majority of these games are AAA that require these little levels to kind of go through, and you have to do all that. I'm not necessarily complaining necessarily. I just kind of want games to be more along the lines of Returnal. And it's funny that people say, oh, bro, just stop playing the game. You just suck at it. I actually think, because if you give Returnal to an average Souls player, they can't play Souls. I mean, they can't play Returnal. They find that game really hard. I wonder why that is. There's no real builds in that game in the traditional sense like an RPG. But for some reason, they just fail every time at playing that game and was begging for Sony to release a save state. They couldn't handle it. For the Souls games, yeah, they could handle it. Because, hey, I could just keep beating the same level 1 enemy and get all the souls or whatever fucking crystals or whatever the fuck it is to upgrade my character. And then I can go out and whoop somebody's ass. Or I could just go online because it's like, that's the problem. I feel like it is not necessarily a Souls issue or a Demon Souls issue or a From Software issue. It's not really a conversation about them. It's a conversation about modern gaming throwing a whole bunch of stupid ass practice or stupid ass layers that doesn't do the game any good. It doesn't teach you the mechanics. It doesn't give you a range of things to work with. Let me repeat here. So I'll say this very quickly, and a lot of times I become scatterbrained trying to squeeze all of this information in. I feel like the problem that we are dealing with now, right, is that they have so many different mechanics and not that many scenarios for you to test out in a meaningful way those said mechanics. Back in the day, you had so little mechanics, but they gave you a whole bunch of different ways to express those mechanics. You look at Tomb Raider, right? The old Tomb Raider from PlayStation 1. She can run and jump. She can jump standing up. She can backflip, side flip, or whatever the case is. And it was relatively easy in the middle of the game. You use every single move in the beginning of the first couple of levels. But you also use every single moves at the end of the game. The difference was the frequency and the way that they remixed the platforms to make it more challenging for you. So they did more with less, put it that way. So he says here, I personally love Returnal, but how many of those games need to be made? The great thing about gaming is that there's something for everyone, and that is a problem. That's something for everyone. What's annoying is that the developers are copying other formulas. That's why there's so many different Souls games, so many different open world games with the same fucking Ubisoft formula, including fucking what do you call it? Not Returnal, Elden Ring. Same fucking shit. You still have the same map. You still have the same icons. It's the same shit. Jeremiah, what's up, man?
Yeah, what's good?
It's good, homie.
Just chilling.
What you gotta say about all this?
I missed the first part.
So okay, I'm not gonna repeat myself, but it's cool. I'm gonna say this, right? My issue with gaming nowadays, right, is that they artificially pad their games with this so-called difficulty, quote unquote, right, by allowing you to go into places with enemies that are way over leveled, or it takes forever in the fucking day to kill it, just to make it so that the games are longer, or to increase that what is the word I was looking for earlier? Investment. If you invest a whole bunch of time with a game, then it's less likely for you to leave. and try something else because you don't want to deal with that again. Back in the day, they didn't have that many mechanics with their games, but they were much harder, right, than these new games. And what they would do is they would have less mechanics, but so many different ways for you to use those little bit of mechanics. Nowadays, everything is flipped on its head. Now you have a whole shit ton of mechanics, and they don't give you that many ways of using all of those mechanics that they give you. So it becomes wasted, and it makes you, and to me, it feels unfulfilling to have all of those mechanics that you don't use, such as, like, let's say God of War. I don't need the fucking spear necessarily, except for one part of the game, right? I don't need the Blades of Chaos either because it's redundant. Essentially, you're just doing it a different way. You're given a whole bunch of mechanics that don't really contribute into the overall gameplay. And I mentioned back in the day about Tomb Raider, you had a running, you had the runs, and you had the jumps, and you had the climbs and the shimmies, and you did all of that in the first level, right? But then as the levels keep going on and on, they start remixing how you did those things over and over again. And it made it more complicated. It made those little bit of mechanics more complicated because they expected more and quicker versus just, I have a whole brand new way of playing this particular game. So that's where I'm standing right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of games, like God of War is definitely a prime example of adding things that don't really add to the overall game except for traversal or opening up stuff. Like, I hate when games do that where, like, the only way to unlock this thing is to get this tool, which is later on in the game, then you gotta backtrack. So it just makes the game seem like it's bigger than what it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I like
back in the day, backtracking was a taboo, man. I remember Tomb Raider 3, you did a lot of backtracking, and that was a fucking cardinal sin. Do not backtrack. That's like they were already on your shit, all these reviewers. But go on.
I mean, there's some games I don't know off the top of my head, but there's some games that do it where, like, you gotta go backwards. Like, I think The Last of Us Part 2, it did it kind of good when you kind of play as Abby and you gotta, like, go, back through Ellie's path and shit like that. Like, that was pretty cool. Like, when you go to the theater, and if you drop the ladder from Ellie's side, then it'll be down for Abby, you know what I mean? Like, that type of shit is, kind of cool. But also, a lot of games, you just have, like you said, the bosses are just fucking sponges. Like, got 20 health bars and shit. Like, bro, like, can we just 15 different final forms? Like, can we just beat this boss already and go home? Like, I hate when games have, like, bosses that have, like, 16 different forms, and you gotta beat that shit. And then also, like the Tales of Arise. I was like, bro, can the game just fucking end? Even though I like Tales of Arise, it got kind of crazy with the goddamn all these different boss forms and shit. Like, come on, bro. Like, can we just play the game and get out of here? So I think games have, like, they don't know how to necessarily make the games longer, so they just add a bunch of unnecessary shit to make the game seem like it's longer and more like complex and shit when it's not.
Yeah, it's like the thing is, it's weird because, like, I mean, I don't even think that this is necessarily a problem in the Souls games, right? I think this is just a problem in general. Like I was playing The Witcher, which to me is heavily overrated. Like, sometimes I wonder that the fighting mechanics are fucking trash, and I hate to be hyperbolic in terms of saying that shit, but it is not that great. You know what I mean? You have your blocks and you have your parries and then that's pretty much it. He's all over the place. The lock-on feature is absolutely garbage. But you can manage because the enemy's AI is not that intelligent, right? So you got something like that going on. But then you have a situation, right, where when you go to an area, right, and I was literally, like, locked out of this area. This is, like, poor game design, right? They did tell you that the level was, like, I don't know, like 40, and I was like 20, right? They did tell you this. But I was thinking it was going to be like a Souls game. I'm exaggerating. It was higher, whatever it was higher than what I was, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I should be able to do it with enough patience, right? And technically you could to a degree. But they put me in a dark area. It was dark as hell. So I needed to use something that I could see in the dark, and it only lasted for a certain amount of time. And every enemy was so much higher than me level-wise. They put 7 fucking enemies on me, and they were absolute fucking sponges. And I was fighting the controls, and I had to keep using this fucking like this magic where I was invulnerable for one hit, and it was just not a. Oh, you was there, right? That shit was not fucking fun, yo. I was like, bro, like I had to reload a save game before I went into that area. Like there was no way to actually like mechanically quit that area because I was stuck there.
In that game's defense, RPGs are like that though, bro. Like sometimes like you'll get caught up, even like the old school like turn-based games, you'll get caught up in the wrong space and you shouldn't have been there, and now your ass is stuck getting banged up. You know what I mean? Like RPGs, when you have level caps and shit like that, you should probably reheed that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, Souls games, the actual combat you're doing is more important than stats. But in like actual RPGs, the stats are more important than your skills. So sometimes you just can't overcome it because the creature just has, you know, so much HP and they're doing so much damage to you that you're never going to be able to overcome it unless you do like a perfect dodge on every single thing you do.
Right, and with humans being, you know, fallible, you know what I mean? I guess I would have to invest a shit ton of time to make that worth my time, you know what I mean? And my time is valuable. I want to play other games. I was never the person to just basically I don't want to play nothing else. Even when I play Horizon the way that I do, I still have time to play other games. And it's like I don't want to be stuck in that area. And I think a lot of these developers are banking on that type of mentality from a lot of people, especially when you have a bigger, you know, when it's a big enough IP, then you're kind of stuck with it. Like I said before, I like the old Grand Theft Autos much better, much better because it was just simple. I can just jump in and whatever.
But then again, though, I guarantee you there's somebody on YouTube right now or Twitter that like. I mean Twitter, but like Twitch, that like beat the game like level 1, you know, fighting level 50 bosses because he's just like some people are just good at certain games or in games in general, and they can overcome even that type of you know what you call it level of difficulty. You know what I mean? Like level spacing or bosses being super spongy.
And I get that, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, on the average, I feel like that's such a terrible like game design. Like honest to God, it is. 99, yo, what you gotta say about this?
Just in general, man, I just feel like as it pertains to like different level caps and stuff, like I said, man, it's all just a fallacy in my opinion to just like pad the runtime of a game or, you know, to make a person feel like they actually overcame something when all they did was, you know, memorize a pattern. You know what I'm saying? Like in the case of Souls games, like the whole game is just like, it's no different than playing like Mega Man or something, right? Where you just memorize the pattern, whatever the boss is doing, and then you attack. Wait for the attack, wait, attack, and then you just rinse and repeat. So it's just all pattern stuff just to, you know, create a fallacy. And people who don't know any better, they eat it up, and, you know, that's just the state that we in, unfortunately.
I've read something on Twitter, by the way, which was very interesting. And I was like, gamers in general, man, we become so like stubborn when it comes to a new type of way of playing. This was a conversation about the new Monster Hunter or the port for Monster Hunter that just released on these consoles, from my understanding. I can't recall. The person was like, why do you even need 4K at all, man? Now, this person is kind of known to like Nintendo stuff, right? But he was like, why do you need to have 4K? Like, what's the point? Like, it's unnecessary. And even though we're going to talk about graphics, this is just a sign that people are just that fucking ingrained in liking what they like, and you can't change it. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. You can't change people's like, you know, mind. Some people like that fucking type of gameplay because they only play that type of game. They only play that type of game, so at that point in time, it's like, I don't want to learn anything more. Keep giving me these same type of games over and over again, and all the other games because I don't want to learn them, or they ain't my cup of tea. They all suck. And then now it changes the landscape of gaming. The same thing actually happened with open world games. Everybody want to have that RPG open world element, and it's like making everything open world. Everything open world. Like I said before, a lot of people can sit there and say get good all day and all night. Nigga, I'll give you the Lion King on the Super NES, man. Play that. I dare you. I double dog dare you to play that fucking game. You want to talk about hard? Go play that little ass kids game. Go do that. Talking about some get.
Listen. Games used to be a competition. It used to feel overwhelming. When I beat X-Men or Genesis, I felt like I won the fucking Olympics. You understand what I'm saying? But today, games are nothing but, I ain't gonna say all games, but most games are nothing but Twitter clips and trophies. And that's why people play the same shit over and over and over and over. So they can post clips on Twitter to say, look, I defeated this boss in less time than you did. Or they can say, I went around and grabbed 50 of the same repetitive item that I don't need so I can get a platinum trophy.
Does anybody want to say anything about that comment? I feel like there was some shots. What about you, DJ?
Yeah, man. I mean, but that's, again, it goes back into what I said earlier. What was I finna say? I got thrown off. Somebody just replied to me. But anyway, that goes back to what I said, because it's also a social aspect now. So it's not just the multiplayer games or the trophy hunting or the achievement hunting. It's basically bragging rights. It's what I've been saying the last few months. If y'all read this book called The Console War, and I pulled it out of the closet for y'all. I want everybody to go find this book, read this book, or find the audio book. I think it's an audio book. And they break down exactly how they got all of this cracked off. Like, this has been since the 90s that they pitted us against each other as gamers. It started when we were, kids or whatever, but now it's transcended because we're adults, and people like to cheer on their favorite sports team. People like to cheer on their favorite boxer or whoever, and we're naturally, even though we should all have enough money to game, regardless of your financial situation. Like, games are now, like, you can get Game Pass for $10 a month and play on your iPad or your cell phone or whatever. I'm putting Game Pass on my granny's tablet. She passed away, but yeah, like and they got games on your phone too. But it's all about the bragging rights. It's all about the social aspect, and either people gonna be civil about it or toxic. Which is why, Call of Duty, you have to agree not to cuss nobody out no more. So,
I mean, the competition is good, and friendly rivalry is good too. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say that it's not. That's not a problem.
I'm talking about, listen, I'm talking about these kids and these grown folks just throwing racial slurs, cussing each other out, calling each other the N-word, 50 miles an hour, they angry or whatever. Like, these kids, like people now who game to get upset at the game, right? Or get upset if they losing. A lot of them are first generation gamers, old and young, right? People who are just now getting into gaming, and they, like you said, hadn't played X-Men on the Genesis. They hadn't played Robotron on the what was it? The Midway collection. Like, they haven't.
But let me ask you this: what is this relating to? Complicated games or more simplistic.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's related to that because you have multiplayer games that have not steep difficulty. They have easy access, but they also have steep difficulty and learning curve. They might have easy control, but it's to learn all the systems in the games Like, Call of Duty, you got to learn what equipment to use and what situation and what building or whatever. If you're playing Warzone or if you're playing multiplayer, you got to figure out how to line up your kills and being able to get the kill streaks without dying and making sure, you know what I'm saying? It's all of that. That's the complexity of it. So then you add the social aspect. And, like me, I'm finna share a clip of how I took 6 people down in Fortnite real quick. I felt real accomplished about it. So that complexity also is going to breed competition because the people who are naturally good at the game or who work to be good at the game are going to show off to other people. And, you're going to have people that are going to want a friendly challenge you. And then you're gonna have people that's gonna trash talk and cuss at you or get upset. I don't know how many times I've seen my friends, like I got a friend of mine.
But well, hold on, wait, hold on, because like I said, I'm trying to keep this kind of
I know
controlled.
you're trying to keep it short, but just what I'm trying to say real quick. My friend got banned off of Halo. Shout out my boy Page Deal. Got banned off of Halo on Xbox Live because he's literally that good. He's not a cheater. I played with him, and he's not cheating. He plays professionally, right? But they grieved him to death. He's been banned off of Xbox Live 6 times in the last 3 or 4 years, just because he's good. That's what I'm telling you as far as being complicated. Because where it may be complicated for some, it's easy for others.
But that's life. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't be everyone can't be equal, and I feel like the developers are trying to. That's a whole other conversation, actually, to be honest with you. Like, that's something different than what I'm referring to. I'm referring to having games with simpler mechanics and giving you a lot of interesting ways of using these mechanics. More complicated ways of using the simpler mechanics. You know what I mean? Whether it be...
They're not going to do that. Like, I mean, the only game I can see right now... There's 2 different games that I can see right now that are doing it. Multiverse... Well, 3. Multiverses, Among Us, and Fall Guys, right? Those 3 games are very, very simple to get in. Smash Brothers is like the earliest example in the last 10 or 15 years that you've had an easy to play game, but a hard to master game for a lot of different people, and it can be surprisingly deep. But those 3 games that I just mentioned are those games that you're talking about. I understand what you're saying. You're saying there needs to be more of those games that are fun just to jump into, but also can be very deep. That I don't think we're gonna get those illicit in this climate because, like I said, they're trying to make stuff to where people keep coming back, people get better, people have good days, people have bad days. Whereas I can play Fall Guys for a whole evening, right? Me, my girl, if I had one. I think me and my ex played some. But anyway, Among Us, we can play that all day long, and somebody's gonna figure out something. If they're the imposter or whatever the case may be, and they're gonna figure out, okay, well, if I go around this corner and stay here, and then I could just trap them in this door and open up the airlock over and over and over and over again before the other person comes back and sees that I'm the imposter. Like, you know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. I see what you're saying. But it's not gonna happen because these developers want money, bro. Like Ubisoft literally made a damn, like, all their games open world, battle pass or season pass to Oblivion, and everybody is is moving away from them, and they're like, wait a minute, we got Assassin's Creed Mirage, don't leave. We're not gonna make the game 1,000 hours where you're gonna have to sink all this time and this money into the game, But they're not. It's just not going that way anymore, bro.
So my question is this, right? Because I love when you do something on social media, right? People still lose the plot. They lose the plot. I think I'm being very, very explicit as to what I'm saying. So about 12 minutes ago, if simple equals God of War, Horizon, Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, or Ghost of Tsushima rather, Grand Theft Auto, Uncharted, then I'm all for it. With the VR coming out next month, we will get more complex games before we get simpler. To hell with cell phone games. Give me a landline, please. So I guess this person is saying I'm an old guy yelling at the stars here, yelling at the clouds here. And what I'll tell you is that what's going to happen is that these people, these developers and people are going to get tired of that. The thing is, you got to respect people's time. And so what happens is if you allow these layers of gameplay to just get more and more complicated over it, more and more complicated, then it's going to make people not really want to try anything else because of the investment. Imagine if it took me about 15 hours to really understand the mechanics of one game. And then they have another game that's a AAA game, and now it's going to take me another 15 hours to get rid of that. To learn that one. And then if I want to go back to the other game, I have to reacquaint myself with that gameplay. That's a miserable way of playing games, in my opinion. That's a miserable way of playing games. My question to everybody here before I wrap this up, because I feel like this needs to be said. It's frustrating when you see shit like this, and it's like, I don't understand what the problem is for not wanting my games to be padded the way that it is. My question, and I'm gonna start with Jeremiah. What is the reason? What is the pros of having a complex game? Somebody explain that to me. Jeremiah, what do you think?
I mean, I think it depends on the genres and also I think sometimes when you have a complex game, it creates its own his own audience for it. You know what I mean? Because some people like to have really complex games, like where they got to do a bunch of all this shit. You know, like people who play games like Eve and shit like that, where you're doing all this crazy ass shit. You know, you're tracking all this shit. You know what I mean? Like you're doing all this shit. When it's complex like that, or like some of these fighting games are super complex, and it's like not like you just hit like like Mortal Kombat where you basically just do a couple of attacks, you hit like one button finisher and shit. You know what I mean? So like, I think the technical games that are like really complex, that has its own audience for that, and people want to play those type of games. It may not appeal to the masses, but at the end of the day, there's an audience for that. You know what I mean? So like, I think that's the reason why some developers make complex games because they want to make it for a more complex audience.
As a consumer, what is the pros for having a complex game?
It allows you to really invest your time and really learn how to play the game properly, and then it gives you a greater sense of achievement that you can master a game that's actually technically hard. You know what I mean?
Okay. 99. What do you guys say? That same question.
You said as a consumer?
As a consumer, what is the pros of having a complicated game? A complicated mechanical game?
I think it creates more engagement because what'll happen is you'll have people that'll go back and forth on the internet. You have 10,000 people that'll go back and forth on the internet showing that they beat this complicated boss or they mastered this complicated system or they crafted this item that took, 20 dungeons to find all the pieces for, and in return you get more sales. So I think for the consumers, it's just basically just more engagement and being a part of a community where you can share how difficult it was or what you had to overcome, and y'all can bond over the diversity of it.
What about you, DJ? What do you think the pros of a complicated game is?
I think the pros of a complicated game, it depends on how well the game design is integrated. So, like, with Ghost of Tsushima, right? It's a complicated, or Sifu, or even with simpler games like Spider-Man or Last of Us, right? I think the pros of a complex game is everything coming together. The storytelling, the gameplay, everything being
I mean mechanically. Mechanically, what would be the pro? Just mechanically.
Mechanically, it will make you want to play the game more. I think that's the pros of a complicated game. If the gameplay is fun, it's going to make you want to play more. Even if you suck at the game, you're going to want to play more. But if the game, if mechanically the controls are clunky, or the gameplay loop isn't satisfying, then you're gonna fall off of it.
So for me personally, right? For me, I spoke to, I talked to a lot of gamers. I've spoken to a lot of gamers in the fighting game community, and they always will get on me for saying this. To me, I believe that the game should be kind of like a rock paper scissors because you don't necessarily know what the person is going to do necessarily. You know what I mean? And you have to have something to be a catalyst for a more complicated game, right? I mean, be a catalyst for your moves. Excuse me. Here's a problem with that, right? Because the fighting community had a difficulty getting new people in there. They kept adding more and more layers to their fighting game, and I think when Street Fighter 2 came out back in the 90s, you had this complicated game. I mean, you had this very simple game. It was really rock, paper, scissors, and basically, you know what I mean? And so other people copied this formula, such as Mortal Kombat, and they had to add their own little flair to it. You know what I mean? More people moved to Mortal Kombat. And then Street Fighter had to pull their own, had to do their own different thing. They added more and more layers to top the other person. Then you had 3D environments where Tekken came out in the 90s as well, where this time it had 3D environments in Virtua Fighter, by the way. And then so forth and so on. Everyone wanted to kind of create this more nuanced fighting game, and there was a whole bunch of rules. If you ever play fighting games, there is a whole bunch of unspoken rules that if you stuck with the fighting game community since day one, you would already know these rules, and you won't even bat an eye to them. But a new person jumping in, there's like, for instance, if somebody does like I forgot what kind of grab it is, you know what I mean? But there's a specific grab where you can't block. You have to duck or jump, and it's like, why? You know what I'm saying? You get it gets lost in translation, as to why it happens that way, and you have to assume. I mean, you have to understand and learn those why, and it just is what it is. So when I speak to these guys and they talk about how they just want they want the game to be complicated and they don't want it to be easy. Their reasoning for this is that it's boring if it's easy. It's a boring ass game. You know what I mean? They want to have a lot more flexibility and things like that. And if you ever go to or watch a fighting tournament, you can see in real time, once you understand what's going on, what their thought process is during that moment as to why they did what they did. And that's interesting. It's like when they look at other people play that are in a competitive nature and a competitive mode, they're like, oh, well, he did this to do this, and I understand why he did this, because if he did, it's a lot of nuanced shit that goes on with that. And they don't like the shit to be simple. They do not want it to be simple. They despise it to be simple. Another thing that I've noticed too with a lot of people that play fighting games is that they are stuck with one of two games. And maybe it's a familiarity situation where they'll try other fighting games, but they'll always come back to the source, which is either Street Fighter if you do 2D games, or Tekken if it's and this is the hardcore people, by the way. If it's a 3D game, then you have the people that want something a little bit more easy, and they'll continue on with the Mortal Kombat. Plus, you have the blood and gore. That's the lore. And then the other games kind of get lost on the wayside. And it's funny because these guys, it's always a contradiction. I'll say this before we wrap it up. It's always a contradiction. It's the funniest fucking thing ever. Who is did somebody fall out? Request it. I don't see anybody request it. Oh, I see you. It's always an interesting thing because these same people that will sit there and talk about something, I can't play this game because it's just too simple. It's too simple for me to play it. You know what I mean? It's just so boring, right? And then you have, what's that game called again? The Dragon Ball Z game. That game is hard as hell. And people that stuck with it, that's a wrap. There is you have no recourse to fight that type of skill level. They will kick your ass every single time, and you notice that these hardcore fighting game communities won't touch that game. Why? Because it's not familiar to them, and they don't feel like learning it. And that's the dangers to me of having too many fucking systems in place. Let me. Okay, so 99. Let me say what you're going to say, and then I'll let Bastard go, and we can all head home here.
Real quick, I wanted to say, as an FGC guy, the reason the reason why I stick to Street Fighter and Tekken is because most of the new games, Arc Systems Works games specifically, they are too easy. They have a lot of auto combos for casual players, and they are too easy for a random to just pick up and just pull off a 10-hit combo and take 50%. It's no footsies, it's no IQ, it's no frame advantages, it's all auto combos and mashes. And the same with Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is why I never got to that game. It's a auto combo built game for casual.
But you could turn that off. You could turn that off, right? And B, if you're so nice with it, you shouldn't have any problem beating somebody that doesn't know the fundamentals in the game, right?
It's not about being nice with it, because I can dominate any game, but it's just a fact. I don't feel like playing against people who don't have to learn the game and don't have to put in the same amount of work as I do. So that's why
you're an elitist. So you're an elitist.
I'm not an elitist. I'm just not going to waste my time playing a game that a 6-year-old could pick up and pull off a 10-hit combo. So I'm waiting for Street Fighter and I'm waiting for Tekken. Y'all go ahead.
I wanted to hear some opposition, yo, because nobody was saying nothing. I'm like, damn, my point can't be that damn on point. Shit, like somebody fight me. I figured the fighting game community would be they would be the one to fight me. And what I was going to say, Bastard, what you gotta say, man?
Hey, man, yeah. I guess I was just going to respond to what you were saying a little earlier. I guess we're a little past that right now. But I was going to respond and say, what was the reason for having games to be complex? Multiplayer games and everything. I feel like it's better for those games to be complex, just like for a lot of reasons you guys cited, but mainly because it brings a level of variety. You know, it helps you be able to have different options, and I think people like customizable experiences. I do think that as people, as humans, I don't think that we're capable of being able to make things that complicated and still make them still accessible in a way that's going to like satiate all of our desires for like challenge, but still meet that meter where we can actually get involved in, especially in today's society. You know, a lot of people don't really have time and energy to be able to try to learn all that stuff. So I was going to say, yeah, I think that's the reason why, that's my reasoning for why games are complicated, is because there are a lot of things that people want to do, and the only way you can do that is if you implement a system that's super complicated. Whether it's actually mechanics in the game or whether it's just the way characters look. And hold on a second, my bad. Why you on my face? So this is why I didn't even hop on in the first place. What's going on? Because as soon as I hop on, somebody got something to say to me. Somebody in my house over here. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say, man. That's it.
That was such a valuable contribution, right? Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
People think that when I make these particular titles, if you ever see my spaces, they think that, I don't know, I think low-key people think that I'm trying to be a know-it-all, and I'm not. What I'm trying to get is a different opinion to understand how things work. And I think you just really kind of encapsulated, like, I mean, it needs more refinement for sure. That's for damn sure, because there's a lot of games that have a lot of padding unnecessarily, right? I like Forbidden West, right? And the reason why I like it is because you have to use the systems or else you're not going to have a good time. It's really not padding necessarily. I mean, in the beginning, they kind of keep you in the cage and then they unlock the cage. But you have to do some exploration to find better weapons, whether it be through a town or you get the materials or whatever. Once you can do your own little side quests and learn how to get the materials. All right, cool. But it isn't a place, I mean, there isn't a weapon that you could just continuously use and that's the only thing that you can use and you could just beat the game like that. That doesn't work that way. You kind of need, for instance, you need the bombs to spread like the what do you call it, the effects onto the enemy. You need the what do you call it? You need the little javelins to kind of stun the enemies. You know what I'm saying? You need the actual arrows. You know what I mean? To either do
Yeah.
short range, medium range, or long range, and you have that precision with those arrows, where the other weapons don't have the precision. Then you have the technical weapons, which is the gauntlet, where you have to throw a fucking blade and try to catch it again, and it charges the blade up again and again. You know what I'm saying? But it does a lot of damage if you know how to do it on a technical level. All right, cool. There are some other games I think that God of War is egregious for that. As much as I love the game, is unnecessarily like you can really just use the X and keep it moving the whole game. You really don't need
Yeah.
anything else. You know what I mean? Other than that one boss battle. And I think that's one of the things. Even the Souls games, I would give them credit on that one, where you really could, with enough time, you could do it. But the bottom line I'm trying to make, right, is that you kind of need, right, because there's Returnal, that's a very difficult game. It's like old school type difficult, right, where the mechanics are very simple, but you have to really master the simple mechanics to make it worthwhile, or else you're gonna have a hard fucking time. All those Souls people ran around talk about some they're so good and you get good, you suck at games, and then along came Celine, and they couldn't do it. They were having a hard fucking time talking about some Sony, please make a safe state. I got a wife and kid, I got kids to feed. I can't be. I want to turn the game off. But I look at these Souls people, right, and I'll see these niggas play these games for 4, 5 straight hours, and don't even have no consequence. I'm like, what's the difference between that 4 to 5 hours and Returnal? That's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's 4 to 5 hours, but look, it kind of required a little bit to stay within the gaming world until you get to past the halfway mark, which is it's unfortunate. But the game is the point is the mechanics are easy, but the situation that you get put into is very complex. That's the situation, right? But then there's variety that you just mentioned. In order for you to have variety, you need layers. Some people may want to do this. Some people may want to do that. And I think DJ said this earlier. All of these developers kind of want to have, or he was alluding to it, they kind of want to have this one size fit all type of game. They want everybody to love that particular game. And so they have to have all of this different variety, which means that they need all of these different fucking layers, which means that the game becomes more complex. And just like what 99 was saying, that's why fighting games play the way they play. If you want the variety and you want different characters, you want to play a different way, then you're going to have all of these layers of complications, right? If you play, what game was it? I'm trying to think what game. A lot of the Call of Duties and shooters, right? You don't need anything more than a specific AK. I mean, a specific assault rifle. Then you can keep it moving. There's no nuance to use the pistol. There's none of that shit is really necessary. You know what I mean? So when you play a multiplayer game, it's usually the same fucking weapon is the creme de la creme, and that's pretty much it. Everybody copies that build, which takes away the variety of the game. So
I think we tapped out, man. I think as people, as humans dealing with this kind of medium that we're dealing with to express these ideas that we have, I don't think there's any other mechanisms that we can do, honestly. I mean, if we're being serious, it's like, how do you build a better mousetrap? You know what I mean? It's like, you really can't get to the core of what that is. I don't think we can do that in this space that we all exist in. Like, games are all on the computer. Maybe if we, once VR starts to really take off hardcore, you know what I mean? And that becomes like super, super accessible, then maybe we can start to look into different ways of how things can actually be more complicated and still simple at the very same time. But as far as like our senses go right now and our reaction, our ability to be able to react to things and manipulate, these games with just our thumbs and a couple fingers on our hands. You think about it, it's like, what are we really doing here, This is the drastic difference between playing games and actually playing like sports or something, where you can make sports somewhat complicated and still kind of like, and still kind of simple,
I knew you were going to try to complete the look. I knew you couldn't wait.
How you mean?
I knew you couldn't wait. This is just an advertisement for 2K. That's all it is. I get you. I was just fucking with you. I do look. There's cars, right? And every car feels different in the world. You know what I'm saying? So I do think that you can. I still think that you can have a different experience, but it still be familiar. I mean, you're not inventing anything new for damn sure, but you still can have a new experience. You still can have a new experience. I truly believe that you can. I think, though, unfortunately, we're going to have to go the way of almost, oh man, this is going to sound terrible, almost segregation to a degree. And let me explain. For the casuals, they need a different mode altogether. They need a different mode altogether. They need a different mode. You know what I mean?
How do you need a different mode? Like, what do you mean?
I mean that they need a different mode for the same type of game. They need a stripped down version of the what do you call it? A stripped down version of the same type of game. Like when you start off, you need to be like, are you casual or not? You know, are you casual or you want a challenge? And if you say casual, you can still get the story beats and everything else, but the game is a stripped down version or a simpler version of the same game. So, for instance, right, if Horizon has something like this, right, and people don't want to learn the different weapons and the combination, you know what I'm saying? Then it would just literally take out all the other classes of weapons other than like the bow and arrow. And then there's no armor really. You just have to just kind of aim at a specific spot. Like you don't need to weaken the enemy by doing this. And then you can keep it moving. Of course, you won't get trophies for that shit, but that's you. You can experience it and roll around, but if you don't want to, I know the ramifications is crazy for that, right? Because people are going to have their egos like really challenged.
Right there, I was about to say.
Oh well. Oh well.
Be mad. Folks are gonna be pissed.
Oh well. You want to sit there and say to you. You want to sit there.
I think people would still invade those areas. People are still gonna invade.
And then they're gonna get their ass kicked, and then they're gonna get mad at the game. That's okay though. That's okay. But then you get shamed. You get game shamed. You know what I'm saying? Everybody looking like you don't like the game. They be like, oh, us true gamers. No, what we doing? We don't have a problem. What's wrong with you? Did you manage to slip into the casual side? Is that what this is? And they're going to get game shamed. They are, and they deserve to get game shamed because a lot of these fucking casual peoples are fucking it up. And this is why fighting games are the way that they are, where you have one button, 10 hit combos and shit like that. That's the reason why. Because they want to feel included. How come I gotta learn? Why do I gotta learn? It should just work.
It's because it's a business, right? Like, and this is where we are in the world, really. When we think about what we're dealing with right now with capitalism and just the state of the world, like, look, people want to eat, and businesses naturally grow, and in order to really appease that growth, a lot of times they have to create things that are what people perceive to be accessible. I mean, it all comes down to like fooling people into thinking they're getting something that they're not really getting. Because if you just was outright with it, then a lot of folks are not going to come to the table. They're not going to drink from your freaking doggone cup. They just don't want to deal with that shit, and that's going to kill sales. Which is going to kill the whole dream of trying to make things, trying to make games in your vision. I think everything just got absorbed in this idea that this is too mainstream. You know what I mean? Like anything that becomes mainstream becomes this whole thing that is so complex, only because it's trying to meet one end, which is more profit. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I guess there's a couple developers out there that are like, they're sticking to their guns. They're like, look, this is what we want to make because this is fun. This is what we want to make because this is interactive. This is the way we envision our games coming to life. I think folks are saying that about, and this is one of the games that I like to fucking play, like Risk of Rain, right? Like that shit is relatively simple. Have you played that?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's more like an indie game, but it's a relatively simple game. Like you got your character and your abilities, and your character abilities. You shoot up the monsters, as they come in waves on the screen, and then there might be some sub objectives that you want to complete for whatever reason. But it's a generally simple game, and what was the other game? I forgot. What was it? Or do they do? I forget who the hell they are. I know it's the motherfuckers over there at Chucklefish. You know, like they make a lot of games that are like really relatively simple, but are very, in depth and inside the systems that they have, to where you don't feel like, this game is like fucking Blue's Clues or some shit. But you can also feel like you're playing something that has some depth to it, without fucking feeling like you have to like fucking get a degree, you know what I mean, in order to be able to enjoy it. Like, and that to me is like the art of real game making, making a good game that's accessible. And I don't think you're going to see that in a lot of these larger games, because they're mainly
They want
focused
that. They
on
want that
collecting.
money. They want that money, and I
Yeah.
get it. So the funny thing is, and then I swear we'll wrap it up. Yeah, I keep telling that I'm working on it, yo. I'm getting faster and faster with these podcasts, yo. I'm trying to. I swear to you, but I'll say this right. Here's Dreams, the game Dreams on the PlayStation 4 or 5, right, is an interesting thing, right? Because it's its own engine, right? And they allow the consumer to create their own games. They allow for that. And that's fine, right? But what you start noticing here, right, is the games that people make, they have to make the mechanics simple so you can just jump in immediately. And you start getting a lot of copycats and templates that have already been made. You start to get that shit. And I do truly feel like that's one of the issues. That's one of the fucking issues. It's like, damn, I really want to do something kind of like really different, but like people are just turning on the game, and it's too complicated. I have to turn it off again because it's just like, they don't have time for that shit. But I mean, I really do feel like we need to have like kind of like two modes. Like, honest to God, like literally that easy mode has no trophies at all. That's what it needs. Like, don't put no trophies in that bitch. You can explore the games with no trophies, and it's still relatively challenging. Like I said before, like if it was Horizon, right? The only thing that you could do is just a bow and arrow, no grenades or nothing. You can still kind of do what you need to do, and then you can kind of graduate from that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to have the trophies, now you kind of get the mechanics. Like the mechanics, Horizon has some very complicated mechanics, and so does, well, the paperwork basically for the Souls games they're relatively complex in terms of like making the builds and stuff like that. You really kind of got to know what you're doing to really make it kind of like worthwhile or whatever. And I mean, I guess that would be the equivalent of saying, "Oh, this motherfucker wants an easy mode for the Souls games." No, let the Souls games be the Souls games. I mean, I'm really referring to other games in the world. Honestly, I'm referring to other games. I don't have a problem with it. My biggest problem is the unnecessary mechanics. Let me just say that before we close out. My biggest problem is really the unnecessary mechanics. That's my problem.
I feel you on that.
It's not that it's hard. It's just like now I gotta do fucking Twister on my controller because you just want to make shit complicated for no reason. And like why do I need to do all these extra like movements and shit like that? So it's like that's what I look at some games, right? I don't know if anybody played Death Stranding, right? If you played Death Stranding, you know what I'm talking about. The game itself is a very simple game. But then when you do combat, I gotta hold this button down and swoop here and then hold another button down just to throw an object. You know what I mean? Like, why can't I just press circle and just throw it? Why does that have to be complicated like that? I don't have a problem with actually giving me a challenge, but if you're adding extra layers that makes things unnecessarily complex, that's my issue. That's the issue that I have. That's annoying to me. You know what I mean? Where you could just press one button and keep it moving. Most of these people don't want to press. Most of these developers, I don't know what the mindset was to make that a thing. To be like, yo, in order for you to throw something, you have to hold L2, the right button, digital button. You have to also press down on the stick and then press triangle to throw a button. Like, what the fuck are you? What? Why is he like? I'm not saying it's like that, but it's damn close. And it doesn't make any sense mentally, especially if you worked with UIs before. It's like, why is it like this? You know what I'm saying? When you could just have one button and instead, even if you've ever played Death Stranding, right? The map system is out of control, and not in a good way, and not in a good way. So that's what I mean. I mean, like the extra layers is weird, and then unnecessary mechanics, and then unnecessary, like, I don't want to say unnecessary weapons because I don't think that's a thing necessarily, but unnecessary mechanics. You know what I'm saying? And just really weird and temporary, what do you call it? Caps, just so you can't get into another area. That shit's stupid to me. That's real dumb. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to sit there like the Souls games pioneered that shit, in this area, it's hard. So if you wander in this area, well, actually, no. That's the one area I had an issue with Elden Ring with, right? Because you can bounce with Elden Ring. You can just bounce, you know, and be done. And if it's too hard for you, you can leave. If you play Demon Souls, Dark Souls, right? That's the rap for you. You better learn how to play that fucking game, or that you'll be stuck in that one area in purgatory for life until you understand the game. You know what I'm saying? That's why people were saying that Elden Ring is easier because of that feature, and then the summons on top of that. But yeah, you sit there and they're like, bro, like if you had a problem in Bloodborne to try to fight the cleric beast, if you don't know how to beat that shit, you're gonna have to keep trying until you win. In and Elden Ring, you had that tree sentinel. I'm just being if a lot of people quit Elden Ring, by the way, so I'm just gonna use the tree sentinel. If your ass couldn't fight that tree sentinel, you could be like, okay, I'll just come back to him later and do something else. Nah, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's a very complicated and nuanced things. And I really do appreciate everybody kind of giving their point of view. I just like to have these particular conversations in the gaming space because guess what? Like when you see a space happen, right? You have the same type of dumbass shit and rhetoric over and over again, which is super annoying, right? The stuff that people talk about in their own spaces or just in podcasts in general or shows, it's just Microsoft dropped 10,000 people. Sony is anti-consumer with 70. That's not to me being a gamer. And you can call me, you know what I mean, gatekeeping or whatever the case is. But it's just I like talking about the gameplays. I really do. I like talking about the gameplays, and I like talking to gamers in general, people that actually play games. We don't fuck about the business side of things at this point in time until it starts affecting the game, which is why we're talking about this at this moment. These companies are thirsty for money. So, like, imagine if I was a hardcore fighting community guy, right? And I just let things go as as a gamer and didn't care about the business side of things. Capcom would have had a 10-hit combo, one button thing. You know, all these really weird supers that allow to even the playing field, that type of shit. Then it starts to affect me. Any last words for anybody? Let me talk to DJ real quick. What you gotta say about this, DJ, if you're still here?
No, we good. You know what I'm saying?